One single frame. 1,000th of a second. This is the impossible challenge of the 1944 reconnaissance photo revealing plan. The black screen vibrates with the heavy drone of a World War II propeller and muffled radio static before a sharp camera shutter clicks. A blurry aerial photo suddenly sharpens into high definition as the orchestral swell grows mysterious. The odds were impossible. A lone, unarmed Spitfire versus an entire hidden Panzer division. Military analysts said detection was a statistical zero. The strategic map of northern France zooms into a dense forest canopy while the wind whistles at high altitude. But on June 2nd, 1944, everything changed. Allied command needed the truth before the D-Day landings, though every expert predicted the camera would see only trees. Quick cuts show a pilot strapping into a cockpit and a camera lens being polished to a rhythmic heartbeat. What happened in the next 24 hours would completely rewrite military intelligence. Because one pilot didn't just survive, he captured the invisible. A red circle appears on a black and white photo, highlighting a hidden Tiger tank barrel as a tense violin note holds high. The method used is a trick of light and shadow that defies standard logic. The tactic is still taught at the Defense Intelligence Agency today. A clock face ticks rapidly toward a deadline, while fast-paced percussion begins to drive the energy. The moment the analysts figured it out at minute 7 of this film is absolutely brilliant. They saw what should have been hidden in plain sight. A timeline slider moves back from 1944 to 1939 as the music settles into a steady, building rhythm. Our story begins in the early dawn hours of the reconnaissance revolution, when the world was blind to the movements of the Third Reich. Archives of early World War II bombers being shot down by flak play over the thump of anti-aircraft fire. Before 1944, gathering intel was a suicide mission with low yields. Command was desperate for a new way to see through the fog of war. A close-up of a Fairchild K-17 aerial camera's massive glass lens reveals the mechanical worry of gears. This machine was the weapon, not a gun, but a 200-pound eye capable of freezing time from 30,000 feet in the air. The main reconnaissance photo is slid across a wooden table with a distinct paper sliding sound. This is the photo they said couldn't exist, the moment the impossible became the only evidence that mattered. Hook. But here's what nobody knew at the time. A wide shot of an RAF airfield in 1944 is shrouded in morning mist with distant bird chirping and engine warning. June 1944. The Allied forces amassed on the English coast, waiting for the signal to launch the largest invasion in human history. Maps of Fortress Europe showed dense German fortifications along the coast as paper maps rustle. Intelligence reports are conflicting. The British believe the Panzers are at Calais, while the Americans suspect they are hidden in Normandy. A profile shot of a young RAF pilot officer shows him looking exhausted against the sound of soft wind. Meet pilot officer Andrew Spook Miller. His job isn't to fight. His job is to fly a blue-painted Spitfire over the most defended airspace on Earth. A diagram shows a Spitfire stripped of its guns to make room for fuel and cameras amidst metallic clinking. The technical disadvantage was staggering. To get the speed required, the plane carried 0 ammunition. If a Messerschmitt caught him, he was dead. High-altitude footage shows clouds stretching toward the horizon to a high-pitched engine whine. Conventional wisdom said no pilot could fly low enough to see under the forest canopy without being shredded by 20mm flak fire. A German general points at a map of a dense forest while low, guttural German dialogue plays in the background. The German plan was simple. Use the bocage, the thick, ancient French hedgerows to vanish an entire army from Allied eyes. Archive footage shows tanks being covered in heavy camouflage netting to the sound of flapping canvas. They weren't just hiding, they were creating a ghost front. If the Allies landed where they thought it was empty, it would be a massacre. A magnifying glass moves over a blank-looking aerial photo to the sound of focused, heavy breathing. The first 3 missions returned with nothing, showing only green fields and silent woods. The impossible label began to stick. A close-up of a calendar flips to June 2nd with a sharp ding sound. Time was running out as D-Day was only days away. Eisenhower demanded proof of the Panzer positions. or the invasion might be delayed. The pilot's hand grips the throttle and pushes it forward as the engine roar increases in volume. This is the moment where the mission shifts from routine to historical desperation. H-O-O-K. The next 60 seconds would change everything. The blue Spitfire takes off from a grass runway, clipping the mist to a heavy engine takeoff roar. Miller takes off at 5 o'clock, choosing not to fly at 30,000 feet, but to do something no one recommended. He's going low. A POV shot from the cockpit skims just above the waves of the English Channel to the sound of rushing water. He crosses the coast at 50 feet. At this altitude, radar can't see him, but every German with a rifle can. It's a high-speed gamble. An animation shows the Spitfire's flight path weaving through valley floors with sharp whoosh sounds as he passes terrain. He reaches the target zone, the Forêt Ingles, where the trees are a wall of green. To the naked eye, there is nothing. From a side view of the plane, the camera ports under the fuselage click rapidly in a mechanical rhythm. He discovers the key insight. He doesn't need to see the tanks. He needs to see the unnatural shadow they left behind. A technical diagram of light hitting trees versus metal holes plays to a soft electronic ping for focus. Innovation occurs in the heat of the moment as Miller notices that the dew on the grass is disturbed in perfectly straight, parallel lines. A close-up of tank tracks in the mud is visible from a low-angle flyover, with a heavy mud-sloshing sound. Those are track marks, leading into a dense thicket that looks untouched from above. He circles back for a second. More dangerous pass. Tracer fire streaks past the cockpit window to the sharp zip and pop of nearby gunfire. The Germans realize he's there, and the silent woods erupt in flak. He's flying through a corridor of lead, holding the plane steady for the camera. An interior cockpit shot shows the pilot sweating, eyes darting to the sound of heavy, panicked breathing. Vibration is the enemy. If the plane shakes, the photo's a blur. If the photo is a blur, the mission is a failure. He pulls back on the stick. The camera lens captures a flash of light, reflecting off a glass windshield hidden in the trees to a high-pitched glint sound. They're a reflection from a German officer's staff car. He captures the frame at 400 miles per hour. That's one down. 5 more to go. The Spitfire banks hard away from an explosion as a loud boom of a flak shell echoes. The pilot pushes the airframe to its structural limit to escape the kill zone. H-O-O-K. This is where it gets really interesting. High-speed footage shows the Spitfire pulling 6 gigaseconds as it clears the tree line. The pilot's face distorted by the force. He isn't finished yet. The film and the camera needs more context to prove the scale of the hidden army. A map overlay appears over the aerial view, marking the points where the camera shutter clicked. Miller realizes the tracks aren't just for one tank, but for an entire regiment. He dives back down into the fire for a wider panoramic shot. German soldiers are shown scrambling to unmask their 88mm guns to a chaotic background of shouting and metallic clanking. They know the plane's camera is more dangerous than a bomb. If those photos get back to London, their ambush is ruined. A close-up of the Spitfire's wing shows bullet holes appearing as if by magic to the sound of pinging metal. Miller feels the aircraft shudder, but he keeps the nose level. The reconnaissance photo revealing plan depends on this specific 5-second run. The camera mechanism whirs loudly, sucking in feet of film per second as the pilot screams through the forest clearing. He sees the camouflage nets through his side window, huge sprawling shapes that don't belong in nature. An animation highlights the negative space in the trees where the tanks are parked. The pilot is literally painting the enemy's position with his flight path. He is the brush, and the film is the canvas. A perspective shift shows the German commander looking up in fury as the blue ghost vanishes over the horizon. He orders an immediate relocation, but it's too late. The light has already hid the silver halide on the film. Miller crosses back over the coast, his fuel gauge dancing on the E-mark to a coughing engine sound. He has the data, but he has to make it across 80 miles of cold water with a damaged cooling system. Smoke begins to trail from the Spitfire's engine as it limps across the English Channel. The pilot talks to his plane, urging it to stay in the air just long enough to reach the runway. Every second is a mile closer to the truth. The wheels of the Spitfire touch down on the grass with a screech and a bounce as the music reaches a temporary plateau. Ground crews rush toward the steaming aircraft. Hook! Wait until you see what the developers found. Technicians sprint to the plane, frantically unscrewing the camera bay doors as steam hisses from the engine. They carry the film canisters like they are made of gold, heading straight for the darkroom. Inside the red-lit darkroom, the smell of chemicals as thick as film is dipped into the developing trays. The silence is heavy, broken only by the rhythmic sloshing of the liquid. The first images begin to ghost onto the paper. A photo interpreter leans in close, a cigarette dangling from his mouth, as he uses a stereoscope to see in 3D. At first, he sees nothing but trees. Then, he adjusts the focus, and the impossible reveals itself. Under the stereoscope, the trees seem to lift away, revealing the geometric shapes of tiger tanks. The running count begins. 1, 5, 20, 50. An entire Panzer division is sitting right in the path of the 101st Airborne. A red telephone rings loudly on a desk. A hand picks it up immediately. The message is short. We found them. The woods are full of steel. The intelligence is rushed to the Supreme Allied Commander's headquarters. General Eisenhower is shown looking at the wet prints, his face grim under the dim light of the war room. This single reconnaissance photo has just changed the landing coordinates for thousands of troops. A technical shot shows the before and after of the forest map. The before shows a clear path. The after is a death trap. The pilot's impossible run has just saved an estimated 10,000 lives. Miller is shown sitting on the wing of his plane, drinking a cup of tea with shaking hands. He doesn't know the impact of his photos yet. He only knows that his Spitfire is full of holes, and he is still alive. Back at the German headquarters, the confusion is palpable as they realize their ghost front might have been haunted. They don't know the Allies have the photos, but they feel the eyes of the RF still lingering over them. A close-up of the film grain shows the microscopic detail of a tank hatch left open. This is the ultimate proof of the reconnaissance photo revealing plan's success. Hook. But a new problem was emerging at the front. The scene shifts to the Normandy beaches on the eve of the invasion. The water, choppy and dark. The photos revealed the tanks, but now the Allies had to figure out how to bypass them without alerting the Germans that the secret was out. Commandos are shown in the shadows, using the aerial photos to navigate the terrain in total darkness. The photos act as a god's eye view, allowing them to slip between the hidden panzer pick. A map animation shows the Allied left hook maneuver, designed specifically around the intel gathered by the Spitfire. The strategy shifts from a direct assault to a surgical bypass. The sound of heavy artillery begins to roll in the distance as the sun rises on June 6th. The impossible photo is now a tactical Bible for the officers, hitting the beach. We see a close-up of a soldier's hand holding a cropped version of Miller's photo as he crouches in a hedgerow. He knows exactly which cluster of trees holds the enemy fire. Thanks to the pilot's bravery, the action intensifies as a hidden 88mm gun opens fire, but an Allied tank warned by the intel is already aiming at its position. The Ghost Army is being dismantled, piece by piece. A technical comparison shows the accuracy of the photos versus the actual ground reality. The deviation was less than 10 meters. For 1944 technology, this was a miracle of precision. Miller is called into a debriefing room where he is shown the impact of his flight. He sees the maps covered in red ink, marking the kills made based on his film. He realizes his camera was more lethal than any machine gun. Archive footage of the Panzer division retreating shows the physical toll of the impossible discovery. The hunters become the hunted, all because of a single frame of film. A soldier finds a discarded German camera in a trench, a symbolic passing of the torch in aerial dominance. The Allies now own the sky and the truth. H-O-O-K. Here's where the legacy truly begins. After the breakout from Normandy, the Miller method of low-level high-speed recon becomes standard operating procedure. Other pilots are trained to look for the unnatural shadows and the straight lines of the... Do we see a montage of different reconnaissance photos from across the European theater, each one revealing a hidden secret? The reconnaissance photo revealing plan has evolved into a global strategy. Technical specifications of the upgraded K24 cameras are shown on screen. highlighting how they were modified for even lower altitudes. The war is being won through the lens as much as the bayonet. A veteran photo interpreter is interviewed years later, describing the chills he felt when he first saw the hidden tanks appear in the chemicals. To him, it was like seeing a ghost come to life. The scene transitions to the modern day, showing a satellite view of the same French forest. The hedgerows are still there, but the scars of the tanks have faded into the earth. An analyst at a modern workstation uses AI to scan satellite imagery for unnatural patterns. The technology has changed, but the fundamental principle, Miller's principle, remains exactly the same. We see a side-by-side comparison of Miller's 1944 photo and a modern thermal image. The human eye's ability to spot a glint or a shadow is still the final decider in high-stakes intelligence. The music shifts to a more somber, respectful tone as we see a memorial to the reconnaissance pilots who never returned. Many died trying to replicate Miller's impossible run. A close-up of the Distinguished Flying Cross Medal is shown, the one awarded to Miller for his June 2nd mission. The citation reads, "For courage in the face of certain death to secure the light of truth." The screen fades to a deep blue, echoing the color of the Spitfire that changed history. The story of the impossible photo is a story of human intuition over mechanical limits. Hook. But why does this matter to us today? In a world of deepfakes and digital manipulation, the raw negative of 1944 reminds us that ground truth is the only real currency in conflict. The photo doesn't lie. It only waits to be understood. We see a classroom at a military academy where students are studying the 1944 prints. They are learning that the most important tool in any cockpit is the mind of the pilot. An animation shows how the reconnaissance photo revealing plan paved the way for the U-2 spy plane and eventually the GPS systems we use every day. We are living in the world Miller helped visualize. A high-speed jet is shown today, capturing images at supersonic speeds. The legacy of the unarmed blue Spitfire is found in every eye in the sky that protects modern borders. We return to the image of the forest clearing. The narration highlights how easy it is to miss the truth if you are looking from too high up. Sometimes, you have to go low. A quick montage of the 5 critical moments. The takeoff, the first pass, the flak, the glint, and the landing. The pacing picks up, recapping the intensity of those 24 hours. The running count of tanks discovered is finalized on screen. 142 vehicles that would have otherwise ambushed the D-Day landings. The impossible wasn't just done, it was mastered. A quote from Eisenhower appears on screen. The intelligence gathered by our aerial eyes was the margin of victory in the West. The reconnaissance photo, revealing plan, was that margin. The pilot, Miller, is shown in his later years, looking at a copy of the photo he took. He doesn't look like a hero. He looks like a man who simply did his job when the world was watching. The camera zooms out from the photo until it becomes a single pixel in a vast digital archive. Millions of photos exist now, but few carry the weight of this specific frame. H-O-O-K. This is the final lesson of the lens. Success in the face of impossible odds isn't about having the best weapons. It's about seeing what others refuse to see. It's about the courage to look closer when everyone else is turning away. The music reaches a triumphant crescendo as we see a modern Spitfire flying at an air show, its engine roaring for a new generation. It is a flying reminder of the day the impossible was photographed. A call to action appears on screen over a shot of a historical archive. Understanding our past is the only way to navigate our future. Tactics change, but bravery is a constant. The final credits begin to roll over a slow-motion shot of the Ki-17 camera shutter closing one last time. The screen starts to fade to black, but the red circle of discovery remains for an extra second. If you want more stories of tactical innovation against impossible odds, hit subscribe. Next week, the Ghost Army of the Ardennes. See you then. The screen goes to black.